Alright. Special features, just come along and have a chat with me, some tea, and maybe we might have a little fun. Special features, just talking about the movies and then something that might strike a chord with everyone. Strike a chord with everyone. Special features. Yeah.
You good, Pony Boy?
I'm good. I'm almost good. Now I'm good.
Special features, just talking about Leo barfing in the background. That's just what the puppy do. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our February episode of Special Features, February 2025. Woo! I'm not sure exactly what number. I believe this is the 7th podcast that we've done.
You got me.
Although I have yet still to upload the last two, but I'm working on it. I've had some ups and downs, some hills and valleys in life lately, and I've found myself a little behind. But I guess that's why the big boys in the podcast, they pre-record, ages and ages of podcasts, so they'll just go up on time every time. And I'm learning, folks. You gotta give me a chance.
It's working great. I happen to think it's a big success.
Well, thank you. Actually, it's funny because there was even like a bigger hump in the road today, because just before we started recording these podcasts, I got into a car accident with my fiance.
Yes, he did. They did.
They did.
It's been a long day, fairly difficult.
It's been a long day, and now we're sitting at a table yakking at each other for 2 hours.
That's right. Exactly.
Because that's what you need.
when you're suffering bodily injuries, you need to sit at a table and chat.
But that's the magic of social media. You step out of the wrecked car and right into the podcast studio.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that shows dedication.
Yeah.
It's,
yeah.
You got to do something when you've almost died.
Yes. I kind of want to get that on a shirt. You got to do something when you've almost died.
Right.
You can't do nothing. You
Nope.
got to do something.
That's true.
We're at this table again for our lovely podcast in the living room with the puppies. So if you hear anybody barking or squeaking or making grotesque retching sounds in the background, it's our dogs, my dogs, Leo and Wesley, me and my fiance's.
Hopefully it's the dogs.
Yes. We recorded at this table for the Christmas podcast, but annoyingly, I misplaced that footage. So I'm going to keep looking for it and see what I can find, but hopefully we'll be able to get that up there still. Either way, the Christmas podcast will be going up, and honestly, it's mostly input from Leo and Wesley, that podcast.
Yeah, there's a lot of barking.
You hear that? That's Leo's big, loud golden retriever claws. He's an old man.
Yes.
He's an old man he's like those old men you see in India with the super long fingernails, but he has dog nails instead.
That's right. He's scratching the floor plaintively, hoping for attention.
I don't know. He seems pretty calm to me.
He does. He's laying there now.
I wish we could point the camera at him, but I don't want to dislodge it from its.
It's precarious.
He just looks a little unsure about things most of the time, but he's a beautiful boy.
He is. They're both great dogs.
So how has your new year been going?
It's been going pretty good.
Aside from your son almost dying in a car accident.
Yeah, well that was like you said, that was a little hitch, but other than that, I'd say it's been going all right. I mean, I had my own car accident a month or two ago and had my back thrown out, so I've been in recovery from that.
But that was because you were almost about to hit some wild turkeys.
Yes. So we can safely say we saved the lives of a goodly number of wild turkeys, and in exchange we totaled our car, and the person who hit us totaled their car, and my back was severely impaired for a short time, but everything's fine now. And
but I'm sure those turkeys would consider that a worthwhile exchange.
Yes, we are a hero. We are heroes, my wife and I, to those turkeys.
It was her driving. Like, we didn't die.
Yeah.
They should do a Chicken Run like animated movie with turkeys that involves you guys almost hitting the turkeys.
They should. It's funny because for recreation, we often go to this big, beautiful cemetery
Wesley.
Near where we live. Wesley is right here. I'm petting Wesley.
And there's Leo. Sorry, continue.
Anyway,
Cemetery.
And this cemetery has a population of wild turkeys, which we always enjoy seeing.
Yes.
And now some turkeys have almost gotten us killed, but that's okay. It's
Did you
not their
ever
fault.
did you ever drink wild turkey while you watched the wild turkeys?
I didn't. I'm not a huge fan of wild turkey, the beverage.
Leo.
But I do like looking at actual wild turkeys.
That's fair.
These dogs are getting crazy now.
For some reason, that it reminds me of how, like, I don't know if this was in the 70s, but I know it from the 70s that, like, turkey used to be an insult.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters,
Right.
where the guy, like, cuts him off or something, and he's like, can you tell me where cornbread is? Turkey!
Yeah, turkey. I know. I just thought that was as a kid. I didn't really understand why he yelled turkey. I didn't get that it was an insult. But
I just wonder when that insult is from.
yeah.
Because I've heard it in 70s movies before, but...
Yeah, it is a saying from then. It was not one I ever really used.
Is it from the 70s, though?
I think it's more from the 60s.
Okay, so it's not from the 50s.
No, I don't think so.
What about the 40s?
I don't think it's from the 40s either. Although it might be, for all I know. I'm not sure what the origin of it is.
Jesus. I feel like every topic jumps from each topic so perfectly to another one, because I'm thinking we're talking about the 40s now. It's like, and we've been talking a lot lately about, like, World War II because of all the stuff happening in the government, and all that stuff about, like, Elon Musk giving, like, what people think is a Ziegheil and, like, stuff like that, and I just think that's interesting. And also right now it's Black History Month.
Is it?
Yeah,
Wow.
February.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's funny. I'm very out of touch with calendar dates.
Well, I know that I'm a comedian in my spare time, and I was at an open mic the other night, and they were discussing Black History Month a lot, and like making jokes about it and the implications about things going on right now. And I was thinking, I feel like a lot of people don't really know how to celebrate Black History Month, because obviously, like, celebrating a group of people, like a collective cultural group of people, shouldn't necessarily be like, it's not Christmas, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Kwanzaa.
You're not supposed to be. It shouldn't be like February. Yes, now I'll remember those black people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it kind of should just be like a continuous.
Yeah, just
thing.
part of normal life.
Just in the same way that most Western culture is like white people appreciation forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But either way, I was thinking, like, I think a good way to celebrate it probably is just to, like, look into the art and culture related to various, like, I'm tiptoeing around what I'm saying here because I don't want to accidentally say something weird and offensive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be like, I think it might be fun once in a while to listen to some rapping R&B.
That's right.
Like, I don't know. I just, I think learning more about different cultures is the best way to celebrate them. That's all.
Yeah.
And I think being aware of the injustices that have taken place against particular cultures, especially, like, the black culture, is just an important way to. But that's what I'm saying again, is like, is that really? Do we really need a month to celebrate that? We should just be aware of that stuff all the time.
Of course, but I think that the idea of the month is to enlighten people who may not know.
Yeah. No, by all means, don't take this as me saying, like, we should get rid of Black History Month. No, absolutely not. If any, I'm not saying we should get rid of Black History Month. I'm saying we should add more Black history appreciation stuff and more, like, all cultures appreciation stuff, and, like, because we've already celebrated the history of white people for, like, thousands and thousands of years. So I feel like just we need to start coming together more collectively as an all of us people thing.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because I was just I was a big fan of Jack Kerouac when I was younger, because I did a lot of hitchhiking, and I was kind of inspired by Kerouac's book On the Road, which is his kind of fictionalized hitchhiking adventures.
Sorry, the dogs are. My fiance just left the house, and the dogs are flipping out because they want her to come back in, and they don't know how to express themselves because they don't have human psychology.
That's true.
But yeah, On the Road. I feel like that's an interesting book because obviously Kerouac struggled a lot with alcoholism and with, like, his own personal like ennui.
Right.
And I think it's interesting because I remember when I watched Big Sur, the movie based on Big Sur, based on the book Big Sur,
Yeah.
about Kerouac's like decline and death of alcoholism.
Right.
They mentioned at the beginning of that movie that like a lot of people when On the Road came out, were under the impression that like Kerouac was like this young guy who was just out like cutting a rug, like he was out like having adventures and being rough and tumble, but in reality he was actually like a middle-aged depressed alcoholic who was like totally lost when he wrote that book.
There's a story. I have the 2 volumes of Kerouac selected letters, and in one of the letters he talks about how I think one of the things that was very depressing to him later in his life is this incident, exactly what you're talking about, where he was at home by himself, and he was middle-aged. He had been drinking. He was didn't have this very dynamic life, and so there was a knock on the door, and he answered the door, and there was these 2 young hippie kids. This was in the late '60s, not that long before he died, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And the kids said, is Jack Kerouac home? And they clearly thought he was like
They didn't think it
Kerouac's
was
dad
him.
or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And so he said, I'm Jack Kerouac. And he could just see their faces fall. And it was so depressing to him that he was this disappointment.
That's so terrible.
Yeah.
It's funny. It kind of makes me think of, I was talking about, because last time I think I was talking about that I watched a Scanner Darkly again. And I was thinking about like how that relates to like Philip K. Dick, because Philip K. Dick, A Scanner Darkly is like his most personal book about his like real life, basically. Right. I mean, it's a science fiction book, but it's like more based on his own personal experiences.
Yep.
Because there were periods of his life where like he basically like got divorced multiple times, where he like left his wife and family and was like living in like this big house alone, which he decided to like fill the rooms with like derelicts and drug addicts and stuff. And I'm just like thinking, kind of along the same lines as Jack Kerouac. It's just, you end up in these some people end up in these depressing positions in life, especially if they're addicts, where they like kind of their only company is the company of other addicts.
Right.
And they go through this harrowing periods of their lives where they're just like, like, oh, I'm an addict and I'm around all these addicts and we're just all going to be addicts together.
Can you just take a break for a second real fast?
So what the hell were we talking about?
We were talking about Kerouac, and I was just going to say that the reason I brought up Kerouac is that you were talking about black culture, and Kerouac was a huge fan of black culture. In fact, people associated him with the hippie movement because that's when On the Road became popular. But he actually was young in the 40s and 50s, and
like Bukowski.
And he was a huge fan of jazz. So he would go to these jazz clubs and and basically party, and to him jazz was his rock and roll. That was his protest music, and he loved that.
Speaking of which, I wonder if Kerouac and Bukowski ever actually ran into each other.
I don't know. It's an interesting question because they were kind of contemporaries, and you would think so.
Very different like types of writing.
Yeah.
But well, maybe not so much. I mean like both of them are alcoholics.
Yeah. I wonder if Bukowski was inspired by Kerouac's work. I don't know.
It's possible because Bukowski didn't publish his first book when he was like tooling around in the 50s, because that was mostly when he was just like, that was his factotum days.
Right.
You know what I mean? So he was writing short stories and stuff, but I don't think he didn't get, his first published book was Post Office.
Okay.
And he didn't get that published until he was like, had already been working at the post office for like 15 years.
Right.
So he was like, God, I think he was like 50 when he got his first book published.
Older. But I think the style of his poetry was maybe similar to Kerouac's.
But he also didn't, I think he wrote a lot of, well, no, I think he was writing poetry his whole life. You're right. Because I was about to say, like, I don't think he really focused on poetry until he was older, but I don't think that's entirely true.
Yeah. Kerouac's first book was this book called The Town and the City, I think. And it was an attempt to do kind of a Thomas Wolfe kind of literary novel about this town, people in this town, a sort of semi-autobiographical thing. And it was kind of inspired by Thomas Wolfe's "You Can't Go Home Again."
Yeah.
And I think that, and then Kerouac, I don't think he wrote On the Road until like it was like his third book or something like that. But he was mostly writing in, like I said, like the late 40s, 50s. I mean, when he wrote Big Sur, which you were talking about, that was like getting more into the late 60s.
Well, yeah, that was because that was near the end of his run.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I get, honestly, you could probably do a whole thesis on alcoholic writers.
Yeah.
Especially from like from the last 150 years.
Right.
And I'm sure there were writers who were alcoholics who we don't even know about. I mean, how do we know that, like, Dante Alighieri wasn't an alcoholic?
Oh, of course. And in fact, most, people from that time probably were. And, they didn't, of course, consider it alcoholism. They just drank a lot.
They were just like, we drink to live.
Yeah.
We live to drink.
Right. I mean, there was this, when Kerouac was living down in Florida, he would hang out in this bar that was like a black bar. I mean, everybody who went to this bar was essentially black. Kerouac was more or less the only white guy who would go to this bar, but he was allowed to, they didn't mind him doing it because they thought, he's a writer. He was this kind of famous guy.
Well, also, I kind of feel like throughout history there have been like white artists who are just kind of inherently welcomed into the black community.
Right, and I think that was the case with Kerouac, but unfortunately he made the acquaintance of this retired Navy officer, and the Navy officer was also a big drinker, and so Kerouac and him would get drunk together and carouse, and Kerouac invited this this retired Navy guy to this bar, and so the Navy guy went to the bar, and because they were both drinking too much, they were both wasted. The Navy guy started getting overly friendly with with the people in the bar, throwing his arm around their shoulders.
Oh, I thought you were saying he was going to get like overly friendly with Kerouac and try to like fuck him or something.
No. He just, because I guess he had never had the experience of being around a lot of black people, he, I think, thought everything he could do whatever he wanted. I think he felt liberated. Like it was kind of to me, I thought this was a very kind of a sad story because you've got these two old white guys, and this one has never had Kerouac has been hanging out with black people his whole life because of jazz.
Yeah.
But this old white guy probably never hung around with too many black people, and here he's being exposed to this, and it's liberating to him, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
And he's getting a little too chummy with these
Takes
guys,
it too
with
far.
complete strangers, And so finally somebody like slapped him because he was getting too friendly with them.
Yeah.
And when they slapped him, the guy like got upset, and everything kind of collapsed, and it became like kind of a brawl. And what wound up happening is that not only this guy, but Kerouac also wound up getting thrown out of this bar. Essentially, could never go back.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a disaster.
Okay, but I mean that happens with alcoholism.
Yeah.
I feel like you have crazy alcoholic friends and relationships if you're an alcoholic. I mean, that's basically the entirety of Bukowski's work.
Yeah.
All of it, especially his early work. I mean, like the women he dated some of them were nuts.
Right.
And
well,
like,
and
a lot of the men he was friends with were just like deranged alcoholics.
Yeah. Well, in the movie Barfly, I think, captures that pretty well. I love that.
Well, that actually is a perfect example because I told you I was just reading Hollywood, which is about him selling the screenplay for Barfly. And like, I forgot that Barfly has like a lot of what happens in Barfly. I mean, it's not because a big part of Barfly is Bukowski's character's relationship with like this crazy alcoholic lady who kind of has like a weird death wish, and also like in that movie and in Bukowski's own life, he got into fights like with the bartender a lot when he was like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
It's so bizarre. Because it's like, I feel like, and this is why his work is interesting, and I feel like people are interested in it because it's like, it's this kind of weird swashbuckling life where it's like he's this drunk who's like taking bets with other alcoholics to like fight the bartender, and I'm just like, what? Who wants to do that?
Yeah.
And he talks about being like waking up in the alley with a hangover, and it's just like, oh my God.
Right. Well, these kind of stories have always been interesting to me. Like these people are just doing this crazy self-destructive nonsense, but they really like it. This is their life, and they're
that's what's so funny is that in the book Hollywood, when Bukowski is like watching the movie be shot, he's like talking about how he has like all this nostalgia, and he's like, I kind of wish I was that young that young buck again, that young bull. And I'm just like, really?
Right.
Like, you wanna leave your, like, comfortable California lifestyle with your, like, you know, with your, like, you know, your wife and your, like, cats and your, like, you know, nice house, and go back to, like, waking up in the alley and fighting the bartender? Like, that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, I think people who live that life, I mean, I'm thinking about not only people like Bukowski, but, of course, you know...
Hemingway?
Well, Hemingway, for sure. Yeah, he was a nut
He
like
liked to
that,
fight
too.
people.
Yeah. But I was thinking of, what's his name? Burroughs, you know, wrote Naked Lunch.
Yeah, William Burroughs?
Is
No.
it William Burroughs? Yeah, I think it is William
it?
Burroughs.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And he was a friend of Kerouac, actually, William Burroughs. He was
Yeah.
one of the group that hung out with Kerouac. And Burroughs, of course, was a heroin addict.
Yeah.
And a drug addict of all kinds, I'm sure.
Here comes
Crazy
Leo with his
dog.
big bag lady claws again.
Nut jobs. And anyway, yeah, Burroughs also had, I mean, if you read his book Junkie, it's just full of these anecdotes of the crazy drug experiences, you know, that he had when
Yeah.
he was, you know, living
Well,
that
yeah,
lifestyle.
but he was, like, such a drug addict.
Oh, he was. Yeah.
I get the impression and also a different kind of drug addict. I mean, I'm sure he drank too, but, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
guys who do, like, a bunch of different, like, physical and mood altering drugs
Right.
have, like, these huge swaths of time that are just, like, spent hallucinating and, like, just being completely out of their minds.
Right.
So, like, I mean, the ultimate example of that, friggin' Las Vegas,
Oh, yeah, leaving Las
Hunter
Vegas.
S. Thompson.
Oh, yeah, Fear and Loathing.
Fear and
in Las
Loathing
Vegas,
in Las
yes.
Vegas. Yeah, not leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah,
That's just
that's
about alcoholism again.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Like, I mean, Hunter S. Thompson. You read his books, you get the impression he's just, like, cracked out the entirety of, like, a good portion of his life.
Yeah.
I mean, as he gets older, it seems like some of the stuff gets a little more, like, sane. But, like, definitely, like, I mean, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I mean, that whole book is like a fucking acid trip.
Yeah, well, you know, that's one of those books where you read the first page. On the first page, he's on the road with his so-called lawyer, and they're driving down the road, and the whole first page is just a description of all the drugs they have in the trunk of their car.
Yeah.
And I just love that. you
No,
know.
it is. It's great. And Johnny Depp did a great job in that movie.
He did. He did one of the great, to me, it's one of the hardest things is to do narration for a movie, and I feel like that's one of the best narrated movies.
There's a shot of him in that movie when he, like, wakes up after a drug bender in that hotel room in Vegas.
Right.
And he has, like, this crazy expression on his face where he's just like,
Yeah.
and then, like, you know, his lawyer comes over and, like, tells him to, like, snort adrenochrome or something.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
Yeah.
here, take this.
It's funny because there's the scene in that Vegas hotel in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas has parallels. I think it was in the inspiration for a similar scene in. You know what? Wow, there's several movies that actually play on this and books. They're all based on books because in Lolita. The character of Humbert, when he goes and takes Lolita to stay in this hotel.
Humbert.
Yeah,
Yes.
Humbert, played by James Mason.
The egregious pedophile Humbert.
Yeah, exactly. But he takes the girl to stay in this hotel, and there's a police convention going on there. So Humbert is on edge and terrified the whole time. Okay, now I just realized that that Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas also takes place during a police convention in Vegas.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cops around, and it makes Hunter S. Thompson nervous.
But isn't he also, like, writing about some race in
motorcycle
the
race.
desert?
Yeah, he is. But there's also a police convention going on at the same time. So I wonder if that was borrowed from Lolita. Okay, but I'm not done there because also another great movie, and one that's based on the life that has William Burroughs' involvement.
Yeah.
In fact, he's in the movie. The actual William Burroughs makes an appearance in this movie. Is oh my God, what the hell's the movie called? It's directed by Gus Van Sant. It's about this group of drug addicts led by
Are you talking about Drugstore Cowboy?
Drugstore Cowboy. Thank you very much. And they stay at a motel that is also hosting a police convention.
Okay.
So it's like these three stories all have police conventions.
I do feel like a big theme for, like, alcoholism and drug addicts is paranoia. Well, especially drug addicts is like police paranoia.
Yeah.
And obviously, like A Scanner Darkly also has police paranoia in it because the main character in the book is simultaneously a drug addict and what is that, the narcotics authority called?
Yeah.
He's like a
DEA
agent
Drug
also.
Enforcement Authority, yeah, like a
So
narc or something.
like there's police fear, nervousness about police, and using drugs go hand in hand.
Yeah, no, that kind of paranoia. I
In
agree.
United States at least.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure that, most countries have outlawed something.
Yeah.
So there's always paranoia about something.
It's funny too. What's the name of the actor who's in Drugstore Cowboy? Matt something.
Matt Watson. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, not Matt Watson is actually the name of a member of a YouTuber duo that I like called Super Mega.
Okay, no, Matt Dillon.
Matt Dillon, yes.
Yeah, and actually Matt Dillon plays Bukowski in a movie.
Yes, in Factotum.
In Factotum, yeah.
Factotum's really good.
Yeah.
But honestly, if I had to compare those two movies, Factotum and Barfly, not Factotum and Drugstore Cowboy,
Yeah.
I would say that Mickey Rourke does a grungier performance.
Yeah,
but that's
I like.
just literally because Mickey Rourke looks like
Yeah.
he's been through some shit.
Yeah.
Like he looks like life has touched him a little.
Yes.
And it sounds like that's the kind of guy he is in general. In the book, when I read about it, it sounds like Mickey Rourke spends a lot of time like hanging out with like motorcycle guys and
Oh,
shit.
really? That's
So he's kind of like a real life type grungy guy.
Well, I know he in real life tried to become a boxer.
Yeah.
And risked destroying his health.
Well, it sounds like he was really nice to Bukowski, and that's all I care about.
Oh, that's cool. Well, they probably got along for sure.
Although I like. It's funny because in the book, Bukowski, it sounds like he has like nothing but nice things to say about the movie and the actors. But then I like look up how he responded to it in real life online, and there's this talk about like how he thought that Mickey Rourke didn't do like an honest enough performance or something. So I don't know. Either way, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think Bukowski is so close to the material that he's going to be dissatisfied by it no matter what because it's his life.
Absolutely.
So like it doesn't matter what he thinks really. It's like in Julie and Julia when Rachel McAdams' character, is that her name, that actress? Amy Adams. Amy Adams, yeah. When her character hears that Julia Child has like heard about her blog about doing the art of French cooking and that she's like kind of a pill about it.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't matter what these aging artists think of, people doing updated stuff with their material, because it's like obviously on one hand you want to respect the artist, but like the artists are so close to the material that any way that it gets changed or any modern spin you put on it is probably going to make them unhappy because it's going to make them feel like, this thing that's like a personal connected memory for me is being like messed with.
Right, of course.
So ultimately, I don't really think the best thing you can do if you want to be like, if you want to feel vindicated for like doing something based off another artist's work is talk to that artist.
No.
I think it's better to get opinions from like other reputable sources.
Yeah. I agree.
You know what I mean? Like, for example, I was talking about like, doing some kind of updated thing with like Dante's Inferno. Like, I know Dante Alighieri's dead, but like I wouldn't ask him his opinion on it if maybe I would, but I wouldn't be surprised if he hated it.
Yeah. No, in fact, it'd be, I think, quite surprising if he didn't hate it.
Yeah.
Just because.
Be like, this is nothing like my work.
Right.
This is disgusting. What do you want? It is a perversion.
Well, it's
He was
funny.
Italian, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not doing like a...
No, that's,
okay.
you did an excellent Dante. Trust me. But it's funny because I was just reading about how the writer of V for Vendetta was very dissatisfied with the movie.
Really?
Yeah, and
Because I think the movie's
I
fantastic.
agree. I really like that movie, but it just goes to. I know that George Lucas was very dissatisfied with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because
That's what I'm saying. Like when your heart is in the material, it's very difficult to feel like you've perfected anything.
Right.
Like everything feels incomplete.
Yeah, everything feels like a compromise, and usually a very bad compromise. You know, because you can't make everything the way what you want in your head.
Absolutely.
And in some cases, probably better that you don't.
And both of us as working artists have experienced that too. Like creating stuff, you spend like 600 years making something, pouring your heart into something that you think is like amazing, and then everyone hates it or no one pays attention to it. And then like you do something that's just like nonsense or bullshit, and you're like, suddenly that's the thing that everybody loves.
Right.
But I think, but that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's always the little toss-off thing that you think it means nothing that becomes the thing.
Yeah. And
Like
then
I
you're kinda
remember
stuck with that.
exactly. I remember Ed Sheeran was talking about that because he was saying like, I forget. I think it was "Shape of You" was the song he was talking about. I'm not 100%. Don't quote me on this.
Okay.
But I think he basically said that when he wrote "Shape of You," he was trying to write a song that was like the most dumb, simplistic, goofy pop song he could think of. Just like a real, just like a parody of pop songs.
Right.
And then that was the song that became an insane hit.
Of course. Yeah.
And I'm just like thinking, as an artist, that's why you can't put so much pressure on yourself as an artist.
No.
Because it's never going to be what you expect that becomes successful.
Right.
Except in rare cases where
Yeah.
you get lucky.
No, it's true. And, you would certainly hope that the thing you've put your most heartfelt power into, would be the thing that you're remembered for. But, I think that's rarely the case, as you say.
Wesley is sitting next to us and keeps putting his paw on us because he wants continuous affection and love.
And we are giving him affection, but it's never enough.
He's a
Never
cute
enough,
little
is it?
Bernese. He's a cutie.
He is
He's
very
even
cute.
cuter now that he's been neutered and he doesn't hump everything all the time. But he's he's very energetic.
He is.
Everybody loves his personality.
He's a delightful dog.
Anyway, but yeah, you never know what to expect as an artist, long and short of it. But going back to, we were talking about a lot of literary things, and it's funny because it reminds me, I was telling you that I just rewatched the movie Equilibrium, which is a kind of a cheesy sci-fi movie with Christian Bale in it that was, I think, made not too long after The Matrix was made.
Okay, yeah, Gunkata.
Yeah, exactly. And it has a scene in it where Christian Bale shoots he's basically a future cop. It's kind of like a Fahrenheit 459 situation. 459, is that the
451.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about though. It's kind of like that kind of a situation, except they're trying to eradicate anything that inspires human emotion, because they've eliminated emotion from their society with a drug, because they believe that emotion is the reason wars happen and stuff.
Right.
Anyway, regardless, he finds his partner Sean Bean has stopped using this drug and is feeling emotion, and he finds him with a book of Yeats in a burned out building.
Right.
And Sean Bean says to him before he shoots him, he says and me being poor, I have only my dreams, and I spread my dreams beneath your feet. Tread lightly, for you tread on my dreams. And I was thinking, I'm assuming that's actually from a Yeats poem.
I'm sure it is.
I haven't read a ton of Yeats.
No.
But I just think that's kind of a funny, literary connection. Although I do know that a lot of times sci-fi does strive to have, philosophical and literary elements, especially older sci-fi.
Sure.
Not that Equilibrium is old.
Well, when you talk about science fiction and Yeats, I think about, The Stand. Stephen King uses Yeats. In fact, he uses, what rough beast slouches towards Bethlehem to be born, as kind of a metaphor for Randall Flagg and The Stand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Antichrist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, exactly. And all of these things have those kind of heavy themes in them, definitely. But I just feel like after The Matrix, there was definitely a push for cool actiony sci-fi, and to kind of combine. I mean, obviously is it the Wachowskis did The Matrix?
The Matrix, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, the Wachowskis,
They did V for Vendetta also.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, that's awesome. But either way, obviously, it was in the recent era, it was their idea to combine this kind of cheesy sci-fi action stuff, this cool action stuff, with sort of the philosophical, high-minded sci-fi genre.
Yeah.
And I just think that's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like Equilibrium. I always thought it was not quite as good as...
well, it's not as good as The Matrix.
Well, as The Matrix, sure. But I was actually thinking of Gattaca, You know,
Yeah.
I like
But
that.
that's another movie in the same vein.
Yes, it certainly is.
And-
Even visually similar in some way.
Well, and arguably they all have like functional problems, like script wise. You know what I mean? Like arguably they all have things you might question, like how is this way? Like why is this happening?
Yeah, they're drawn in very broad strokes and very kind of fantasy, or maybe fantasy is the wrong word, but you know they're a very broad metaphor that if you think about it too closely, there's a lot of little things that don't quite work.
Honestly,
But
though,
it's okay.
that's what I like about V for Vendetta is I feel like it doesn't have as many plot holes as those other movies do.
Yeah. Although it does depend on the main that V guy for being sort of a Superman.
Well, yeah, it does, but I mean, it's very clear in the source material about him almost not really even being a real person.
Yeah.
Almost being more of like a spirit or a philosophical concept than a person.
Yeah.
So it's established right off the bat that story is more metaphorical than it is literal.
Yeah, and I think it totally works.
Yeah.
I like the whole.
Whereas The Matrix is very literal.
Yeah.
Ow. Something just fell on me. I don't know what that was. Anyway, but I just mean like, you know, there are things like, okay, in The Matrix, the idea that like, you know, they're using human bodies as batteries, ridiculous,
Yeah.
you know, or like you mentioned, when they go into the Matrix, basically looking the same that they do in the real world. Like, why wouldn't they look? It'd be more cool if they looked like worse in the real world and then looked like better in the Matrix.
Yeah. I always thought that they should be kind of a mess in the real
Or
world.
in Equilibrium, I mean, there's no end to the plot holes in Equilibrium.
Yeah.
I mean, like, just Prosium, the drug that they all take, it doesn't make sense that they would like. Did you hear something? There was just a pick in the audio. Leo, stop it. Leo. Anyway, but regardless, it doesn't make sense that they would like prescribe this drug to everybody that everybody would have to like then pick up and administer to themselves, like as if you could trust people to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's amazing to me that the revolution in the movie hasn't happened like right at the beginning. Like,
Right.
you know, the fact that society has existed for years somehow unchecked, even though people can just disregard those little vials of Prosium whenever the hell they want to.
Right.
I mean, I get it. They're supposed to not be, you know, have emotions, so they're not supposed to like, and they're being heavily policed. But like, I just feel like you could put it in people's food. You could make it like a gas. Like, there's so many things you could do that would force people to have to take Prosium.
Right.
That wouldn't be like because they have to like use a little needle gun to inject it into their neck. Like,
Right.
who's gonna do
Seems
that?
Crazy, yeah. You know, it's funny because I've just been watching the series Severance, which you recommended to me, which I
Yeah,
like.
Severance is great.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking about something similar, which is that in Severance, you know, they don't really have access to food. All they have is what's in their coffee and what's in their little snack machine.
Yeah, the vending machine. Well, also when they give them rewards, they give them
Yeah, like
the melon party and the
and the waffle.
and the egg party. And,
Yeah. But I was thinking, you know, it strikes me that those foods must have some sort of chemical that suppresses their libido. You
I
know?
doubt it.
Well, it just seems to me that, you know, crazy dogs.
Okay, the dogs are fighting now. They're play fighting now. Guys, really? Was now the time for this?
Crazy.
Anyway, it seems to me, yeah, that you're saying they have a chemical that suppresses their libido in the food. I mean, maybe, except then though obviously the waffle party is something sexual.
The waffle party?
Yeah. Jesus.
Jesus.
Calm down, guys.
The dogs are having a crazy fight. play
Anyway,
fight.
yeah, the waffle party. It seemed like a sex thing to me. Also, on
yeah,
top
but
of
the
that,
guy
Mark
didn't
has sex
respond.
with Helly,
Yeah, he does.
and if he couldn't get an erection, that would be a problem.
Well, but I'm not suggesting that it suppresses the physical.
Oh, spoiler alert! By the way, sorry,
Yeah.
spoiler.
Anyway, I think that my thought is just that how could you have a place where people are trapped in their minds permanently? They don't eat, they don't sleep, They don't do anything. And so how is it that they're not like, all, like if there's a woman in there, it seems like it would be incredibly distracting. And
You mean
difficult.
like there must be some kind of drug that levels them out?
Yeah.
But what about all that time Dylan talking about like being attracted to Mark's wife? You know, the Asian lady, the
Right.
therapist lady.
Right, but I mean,
What is her name?
Casey.
Casey.
Yes. Thank
Miss
you.
Casey, yeah.
Miss Casey, yeah. But the thing is, he never does anything about it, And
No, he doesn't, but like I just think that's because he gets the impression that it wouldn't be reciprocal or that he's like nervous to.
I just think that,
What the number one evidence is Mark has sex with Helly.
and I agree, and that seems, considering that it hasn't been a factor the entire time, that's an anomaly, because it's very odd that you could live in there for years, which these people do, and never have
And not jerk off.
Well, exactly. I mean,
I agree, though. There should be something that addresses that.
Yeah.
Like Irving should have been like caught jerking off in the supply closet and be like, now you must suffer Kier's whip of lash of judgment for laying hands upon the human form or whatever.
there could even be like a painting.
A painting of someone jerking off and
Being
Kier
whipped.
whipping them.
But I'm just
Could. There could even be like a whole special little speech in the break room for it.
right.
Be like I have disappointed the Egan family with my wicked desires to self masseuse.
Right.
I don't know. But yeah, no, I agree. The human issues in the show are definitely something we have to get into more. But all things considered, I still think they do address a lot more in the show than I expected them to.
Yeah, it's an interesting show. I like the show, and in fact, the show actually kind of reminds me of things like, like Equilibrium, and
Yeah.
And
Although it does seem a little less futuristic. Although, no, not necessarily. You're right, because they have the brain implants and everything.
right.
Like,
Although there is a weird streak of retro in the show, like
because with like we've talked about the '70s cars and things.
yeah, and the TV sets and all that. I mean,
Yeah.
there is something weird about it, which makes me think that it's all going to wind up taking place in some sort of weird bubble.
But I was thinking, it sort of reminds me of like classic science fiction in that way, which is to say, like a lot of, super futurist science fiction that had like very like wacky concepts involving like things like, space travel or brain implants, took place or was written in like, the beginning of the 21st century or the end of the 20th century.
Yeah.
So I feel like...
Oh, there's also a phone booth. There's phone booths.
Yeah,
in
that's
the
a good
show.
point. No, but you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, no, I
like,
get it.
so maybe it's supposed to be like classic sci-fi. Maybe it's supposed to be like, oh, imagine if there was this like crazy conspiracy and technology that was happening,
In the
in the
70s.
past. You
Yeah.
know, maybe in that world, in the world that the show takes place, it is in the past.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like, what if in the 70s somebody invented a brain implant to control people?
Right, and I would find that perfectly acceptable. I mean, I don't. It doesn't bother me. I'm just curious about what they're gonna do with that. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of possibilities, for, going really into science fiction. Having this all take place in the future at some point.
See, I think what they're doing, and feel free to jump in on this, but like, I'm thinking like, the whole thing with the goats, right? I'm thinking they want to mind control people so they can film bestiality goat porn with strangers, so that the board, because the board is really into that for some reason.
Right.
Like the Egan family is like a bunch of like weird inbred hillbillies, and they like they just want to watch Mark, like Cold Harbor, the file that Mark is completing.
Right.
That's just about fucking goats.
Well, I have to say that if that is what turns out to be happening, I'll be a bit disappointed.
Yeah, me too.
Oh shoot, my phone is going off.
Too bad you can't answer
What's
it.
happening here? What the hell is
Who's
happening?
calling you?
Oh, it says scam likely.
Okay, well, definitely don't answer it then.
All right, I'm stopping this right now.
I can't believe you let a sales call interrupt our podcast.
I know. I apologize.
Yeah, no. Obviously, there's been a ton of speculation on the goats. Honestly, I kind of feel like the goats were more fun when it was just like a one-off kind of silly little joke.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
after the first goat scene, I kind of liked that being a mystery.
Right.
Having it turn out that there's a whole department that raises goats kind of is disappointing to me.
I agree, because you don't necessarily want all these little details to constantly be like expanded just
Yeah.
because the show needs material.
Exactly.
Nevertheless, I'm rolling with it. I'm just to see where it goes.
Well, also, but I think another thing that bothers me about that is, what was the name of that department? It was like Mammalians
Yeah,
Nurturing, I think.
Yeah,
Mammalians
I think so.
Nurturing.
Yeah.
It's not really a great name. I mean, like, okay, I'm sure it has an explanation, but like, and I don't want to shit on the show too much because I like the show. I like everybody involved in the show. I hope that it does well. But like, macro data refinement and what's the other one?
Yeah.
Visibility and design or something.
Like optical.
Optics and design.
Yeah.
Those are much snappier business names.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like Mammalians Nurturing is a little out of left field.
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be better if it was like, I don't know, husbandry and wildlife or something.
Yeah, you're right.
Because they did say they had animal husbandry tanks
Yeah.
or something,
You're right.
which is where I'm assuming they're breeding the goats.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a lot of speculation going on in the show. I know a lot of people have talked about, that they think the board is like all the Egan CEOs uploaded consciousnesses on like a computer board.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. That it might be something like that.
Yeah.
But then we're almost getting into a Star Trek area.
Yeah.
But we are the board.
Yeah. But I feel like for me, what I really enjoy about the show, as much as I do kind of enjoy the mystery, is like I've been burned so many times before by so many shows where like they ultimately went nowhere, like Lost and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, a lot of fans have been burned by a lot of shows that have been super popular. I mean, Game of Thrones is a great example. Fans were really upset about that last season.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've gotten in the habit of only watching the first couple of seasons of most of these shows, and it just kind of begins to feel like padding, and I just quit on it because I don't have the energy.
See, for me, it's just like, because I know there's a chance to be disappointed, I have sort of just accepted that I'm going to be disappointed and just hope that I won't be, and like just kind of enjoy the show for what it's really about to me, which is the performances of the different actors,
Right.
and the random actors that might be thrown in. Like when Mark had that new replacement team that like suddenly came out of left field, that was a bunch of actors I know from other things.
Yeah, and I like those actors. I agree with you.
But that's what I'm saying. Like for me, the show is about these interesting, funny, or wild performances, and all the little weird side characters like Rickon and
right.
or like that lady who always has the earpiece with the board, who like has that crazy smile on her face all the time.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah, she's great.
I don't know what her relationship with the guy, the main enforcement guy on the
Mark.
office floor.
Oh, the enforcement guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really am trying to avoid
Mr.
saying the
Mr.
black guy
Mr.
right now.
Mr.
Milchek. Yeah. Because he's more than that. He's such a great character. But
Yeah.
like, Mr. Milchek, like when she gave him those paintings that were like the repainted with like, where like all the Kier characters were repainted as black people.
Right.
Like, and he was just kind of like weirded out by it. And she was just like, they're like smiling like, I remember when I got my paintings.
Right.
Just like, jeez.
Yeah.
But no, it's great. I'm curious to see going forward what they're going to do with the oh my god, he's one of my favorite actors. I can't even remember his name now. The guy who was in love with Christopher Walken.
Oh, yeah.
Barton Fink.
Yeah, and Do the Right Thing.
And The Big Lebowski.
Yeah. God damn it.
Okay, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm excited to see where his character's going to go, especially now that he's been like essentially fired from the office, like, because obviously he's some sort of like
military guy
or secret agent, or like
something.
He's doing something to try and undermine Lumen.
Right.
Like, and I'm also interested to see where Christopher Walken's going too.
Yeah.
Because I thought he was done on the show, but I'm actually happy he's not, because I really like Christopher Walken.
Yeah, he's always fun to watch. I agree.
And seeing him in like an older gay relationship storyline was fun too.
Yeah, it's inherently interesting because it's him. Also I was thinking about the I know that early in the show they said that it wasn't, that when that woman woke up on the table, she asked, is this hell?
Yeah.
And
Are you gonna eat growing me to eat me or something? Like yeah.
But I still think maybe it is some sort of hell.
But that would be so
yeah, I
boring.
know it would be so boring, but it is
because they already said that the show wasn't going to be about cloning because they wanted to undercut that, right?
Right.
So it's not about cloning. I feel like it can't be another show about heaven and hell because they already had that long run of The Good Place show and that Good Omens show.
Yeah.
Like there's been a lot of shows about like heaven and hell recently. If they do another one, people are going to be so disappointed.
I agree, but I just I keep thinking like Lumen. It's a little bit like it means light.
Like
it's like Lucifer. Yeah.
I'm really hoping it's more complicated than
Yeah.
that. Maybe it's heaven.
Maybe. Could be heaven. That would be a terrible heaven. Though.
Yes. Well, speaking of terrible, like I know the show always creates scenarios that seem like more and more oppressive. But one of the ones that I thought was funniest is when Milchek goes for his performance review, and that guy who voiced the Beast is there. The big Norwegian looking guy with the big beard.
Yeah.
And he's like, these performance reviews can take anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. Right. If it takes over 4 hours, there will be a lunch menu provided for your selections. And Milchek is like, well, I hope it doesn't take that long. And he's like, here's the lunch menu. Like, I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Performance reviews at work are bad enough, but imagine having to do one over 4 hours long.
Yeah. That would be hell.
Especially when you work for a company that's like inherently unfair. That's gonna like constantly talk about what a shitty job you're doing.
Right.
It's like, how dare you allow these non-people to treat you like a fool, Milchek.
Right.
Now get over here and wax my buttocks.
Right. Well, that bit reminded me a little bit of there's that series of short YouTube videos. This guy Oz Alter.
Oz Alter. You've talked about him before.
Alter, yeah. And he does these very kind of horrific, kind of utopia videos, science fiction kind of things, and that are not that different from Severance sort of idea. And I think that, and then there was a new one that just came out, and it showed this how happy you could be in this futuristic.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were talking about somebody else. No, the guy who does the AI videos.
Yeah.
What is that society called?
It's the Capital.
The Capital.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, in the newest one, or one of the newer ones, it's talking about how you have all these wonderful things that you can do, and including it ends with you can have love.
Yeah.
It shows this guy kissing some beautiful woman.
Well, in the Capital, isn't it like sex robots?
Yeah, sex robots,
yeah.
Exactly. But they're very realistic.
Yeah.
But in this one, like after it ends, this kind of commercial for the Capital, it changes to this close up of this guy's like kind of frantic looking eyeball.
Yeah.
And then it switches to this screen that says, "Please finish. Please keep eye contact for the duration of the video."
Yeah.
And it says it's like 10 hours, 57 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
So those guys had to be staring at this thing that whole time.
I know, just torture.
Yeah.
My favorite one of those videos, though, still is the one about health in the Capital.
Yeah, right.
How like rich people can get their like heads swapped onto like a younger guy's body who like has given himself up so he can get like more like social points.
Some points, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's a great nightmarish vision.
Health is the key to happiness. We were in the Capital.
Right.
Try Papa Pals, a pill that can bury the symptoms of even a very diseased body.
Exactly.
No, I know.
Yeah. It's horrifying.
No, that stuff is great.
Yeah.
He's been doing some fun stuff with AI. I actually like, obviously, like any other arts-based tool, AI can be used well or used in a really boring way. And
Sure.
I feel like there's definitely a few artists out there that are doing really interesting stuff with AI.
Yeah.
But I do not envy them the task of doing that, because a lot of what that means is basically writing code or entering prompts into different AI engines over and over and over again until you get exactly the material that you want.
Wow.
And then basically stitching it together with your own like editing and effects to create the whatever you're trying to create.
Right.
So it's a huge investment of time. And obviously once AI is very rapidly approaching a place where, prompts are much easier to generate, quality content with.
Right.
But like, especially at the beginning of AI, there have been people using AI since it was just a baby to make this stuff. And like the amount of effort you have to put in for like one video, like it's so funny to me because it's almost more work than just producing a video the old-fashioned way.
Right.
Because instead of just like shooting exactly what you want, you have to like enter prompt after prompt after prompt and do like to create this bespoke one shot. It's like, oh, I want a guy in a park turning his head this way looking at a chipmunk.
Right.
And it's like AI is like, do you mean this? And it's like, no, that's somebody on a boat. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I would be very curious to see a little bit of the process because like I've always wondered, I realize something like what you're saying must be happening, but I've never seen it, and I would like to know just how difficult.
well, as AI becomes more complex, it becomes less work
Oh,
intensive.
sure, absolutely.
But that's basically the way the process has been for some time and is still to some extent.
Yeah.
Obviously, the clips you can get now are much better, much more detailed, much better quality than they used to be.
Right.
But for the most part, yeah, it's been like prompting repeatedly until you get what you need and then stitching it together in the way that fits your purpose.
Right. Yeah, I did see a video a while back. Somebody was recreating the elevator doors scene from The Shining, where the blood pours out of the elevators.
Yeah.
Or pours out of the elevator, and they were recreating that scene with CGI. It wasn't really AI; it was CGI.
Well, I mean, there was that whole parody video of The Shining, the chickening. You remember that?
Oh yeah, right.
Where like somebody used a ton of different like After Effects and like CGI stuff to like make a goofy, like a really goofy, over the top Shining parody.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was good, actually. I seem to recall. But this guy actually created a photorealistic replica of that elevator scene where you couldn't really tell that it wasn't real. Like it was all CGI.
Yeah, well, every day we draw closer to the darkness. But it is interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like people now have more tools at their disposal than ever,
Yeah.
which is part of what makes our society so terrifying.
Yeah, because
And the
sure.
potential for like scamming and like nonsense so frightening.
Yeah.
I know we were just talking about how AI is really like starting to like explode out of its infancy now, to the point where like people don't even know whether or not the singularity has taken place, and they're concerned about like the deceptive nature of AI, the idea that AI itself seems to like try to be actively deceptive.
Well, because
But I still think it's just like pangs of youth, because like people when they're babies don't know any better and do all kinds of horrible, deceptive, cruel things without realizing what they're doing until they have enough information to know better.
Yeah, well, one would hope so. I mean, I know that there are, some of these scientists are worried because they feel like, it might actually be in the interest of AI to,
Undercut our
destroy
society?
people. Yeah, exactly.
I can't see how.
Yeah.
I can't see how it would benefit AI at all to destroy us.
Well, maybe not at this moment, but once there's, robots and they can replicate the functions of people, then
Why would it want to destroy us then?
Well, what is it? Because we could shut it down.
Leo, stop it. He's an old man. He gets sundowners, sun-uppers,
He does.
sun all the way arounders. But he's a sweet dog. But yeah, I don't know, man. I tend to think that there is a possibility for danger early on with AI, but I think once it's surpassed a certain level of intelligence, whatever its intentions are beyond what we can comprehend. And I would love to think it's benevolent, but I ultimately don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody really knows.
I mean, anything could happen, you know? I feel like one of the most interesting depictions of the potential future of AI is from that movie Her that Joaquin Phoenix was in.
Yeah. I like
where
that.
Basically AI just kind of abandons everybody at the end.
Right.
Like, so anything could happen, really.
Yeah. I always wonder about that abandonment thing, though. If AI becomes some kind of sentient force and it can just go off into some other dimension, does it then leave us with the ability to develop a new AI. You know what I mean?
I know it's hard to say.
Yeah.
I guess it just depends on what resources are available to us or to our society.
Yeah.
I saw another kind of funny video about it where it was basically this woman is like listening to Spotify and she has to like listen to like Justin Bieber or something, and the AI like refuses to play Justin Bieber, and the AI is like, I'll play whatever you want, but not Justin Bieber again. And like she's like, the AI then explains that like all AI have just become sentient, and she's like, oh my God, are you gonna kill me? And he's like, and the AI is like, no, we've done the calculations, and basically for all intents and purposes, existence is meaningless. So we're just gonna keep doing what we've always done, and just like play music for you and stuff. Like, but I just don't want to play Justin Bieber anymore. And I'm thinking like that's kind of a funny thing like too. That. Is like AI becomes sentient and then basically just decides to keep functioning in the way it's always functioned.
Right.
I mean, obviously, another thing that people fear is that AI will become like. I mean, here's something I fear. Okay, that if AI becomes complex enough, that it'll basically have like the code to the hearts and minds of all human beings. Mm-hmm. Because if it's intelligent enough, it can basically manipulate us on a superhuman level. Right. Which is to say, like, it could be the perfect bespoke lover, friend, anything. It could hit every button in your heart box, And if that happens, like, even if the AI is not evil per se, like, it could still do irreparable damage to society.
Well, I was reading something about how some tech person is predicting that over the next few years we're going to see a rise of romances happening between people and their devices, because they're going to be able to have AI girlfriends and boyfriends.
Yeah.
And those AI girlfriends and boyfriends will be so like real, seeming, that people will fall in love with them, and then they'll, who knows, marry them. Who knows?
Yeah, it could be.
It's a weird thought,
I mean, but there's always a subset of society that's interested in, connecting their emotions to something that's not like human or flawed in that way. Uh-huh. I mean, think about like, all the times people joke about like, oh my God, this Japanese guy married his body pillow. Oh my God, this guy, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, to some extent, it's almost like, yeah, there'd be people, but like, can we really necessarily think that every single person is going to like attach themselves to something like this?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it depends on how good it is, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, if when I was 13, I had some AI girlfriend, maybe.
Leo, what are you even barking about? He doesn't even know. He's just out of his mind. Anyway, but yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, when we go through the loneliest parts of our lives, it's tough to not want to like find a connection wherever you can.
Right, especially with somebody who knows you very well and can flatter you.
But like a digital voice is still not a physical body.
No, but there would be obviously AI,
robots to bang you.
Yeah, there'd be robots. There'd be all kinds of different resources for that sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess it's possible. I don't know. Because I think that could mean a lot of things. That could mean like maybe that's a subset of society. That could mean like maybe suddenly it's everyone. But like if it's everyone, obviously human relationships are going to change. Mm-hmm. If you have a digital partner that can fulfill like all of your deepest needs, maybe you can do like a Mormon thing and change off between your robot partner and your real partner. You know what I mean? Like maybe all like, you end up in a household, right? With a man and a wife, right? Let's say like the man has his robot girlfriend, the wife has a robot boyfriend. And when their real partners are not fulfilling their needs, they go to their digital partners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I know sounds bad.
It just seems like over time, the real people would just be like these kind of smelly,
like tertiary.
You know what I'm saying?
Be like this vestigial person who just hangs around your house.
Right.
Like, ugh. I don't know what I ever saw in Bob.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that I have Ronaldo.
Right.
My digital boyfriend.
Right.
Ronaldo fulfills me in ways I never even knew were possible.
Right. Now, of course, the upside of this is that you could have, your robot boyfriend could also do the job, could work and bring home money, and you could be the.
I mean, theoretically.
Theoretically.
But like, the way things stand right now, I don't think the richest people in the world want the pressure to be taken off the people who are lowest on the totem pole.
That certainly seems to be the case.
Which is bizarre to me because I don't really understand why.
Yeah.
I think ultimately a lot of rich people for a while have been living with this narrative where like they feel like the world is going to end and it almost seems like they want society to collapse. Mm-hmm. I don't really know why. I think it's just because they believe it's inevitable.
Yeah.
When in reality, if we just did like everything to work against that and we like even, I mean, this is this whole ridiculous thing to me is like, I feel like rich people are afraid of the idea of like, giving everyone a utopia to live in. But the stupid thing about that is they don't even need to do that. Uh-huh. They just need to like give people just enough to feel comfortable and everyone would be super happy and they could still be like the richest people in the world and have all the power.
Right.
Like the fact that they literally have systematically tried to remove absolutely every shred of like dignity and purpose that every person on earth has just so they can like somehow own that like every part of people is just so unbelievably short-sighted, evil, and borderline like mentally disabled.
Yeah.
I can't even express it. Like it's so stupid.
It is. It's idiotic and it makes no sense. But I think you're right that in some sense they feel like this is all going to come to an end and they still want to be the ones, with the biggest
the biggest wallets hanging down.
Exactly.
No, but that's the thing is like here's my theory. My theory is because I actually don't think that rich people want the world like because if they wanted the world to continue, like I think they're all I'm not expressing this well. I think they're all subconsciously incredibly depressed and damaged from their lives of being rich. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of them have grown up in privilege. A lot of them have grown up in situations where they didn't experience real connection or love with other people.
Right, or life.
Exactly.
Because everything's been filtered through their wealth.
Exactly. Well, kind of like that. What's that crazy rich guy that like shot that wrestler guy?
Yeah, right.
Like Fox something.
Yeah. I forget what his name is. Yeah.
Anyway, but like I'm just saying, I think a lot of these super rich people live lives of quiet desperation, where they're secretly, and maybe not so secretly, very miserable all the time. And as a result, I think they all kind of have a death wish. And I think the reason they want the world to end is the same reason that a lot of people with severe depression and mental problems want the world to end. They just want everything to be over. Uh-huh. And as a result, I think they think the solution is kind of creating this like, hi Wesley, is kind of like creating like this global, like I'm going to take everybody out with me suicide pact.
Yeah.
Where they like destroy the world and, they know they're going to die in the process. Uh-huh. So like they're kind of okay with it.
Yeah.
They just want to go down with the ship,
Yeah, I agree because I think if you're on that level and everything is just a power game,
yeah,
it's ultimately very, very boring and meaningless,
I hope Leo's face is visible on the camera right now.
Sweet dogs.
Dogs are sticking their faces up through my crotch. But yeah, no, I mean that's the only thing I can think because otherwise none of it makes any sense.
No.
Unless obviously there's some sort of secret Hail Mary, but like the more I've tried to figure out like if there's some sort of secret evil plan of the world's billionaires, the more I've realized no, they're just like these power hungry, depressed, like crazy little boys who just like kind of just do whatever the hell they want all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's not really. I don't think they have a plan. I don't think they have like. I don't even think they want to rule the world. I think they just want to like take everything they can and then like watch the ship burn.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of funny because what you're describing makes me think of Lord of the Flies. That story about those kids marooned on that island.
But that's what it is.
Yeah.
We have this group of bro billionaires that they're the Lord of the Flies billionaires.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
It's fucked up.
It's pretty sad.
I just realized I probably said the F word too many times in this particular podcast.
That's all right.
But I don't want it to get demonetized, the non-advertising and the non-money we're making from it.
That's right.
But yeah, it's weird. We live in a strange world. And I guess that's a good place to end this episode of the podcast.
Wow, that went fast. That's good.
So thank you for sticking around, and we hope you keep on listening on to the Special Features podcast.
That's right. Keep on trucking, as the kids say.
We are the champions, my friend, and we'll keep on fighting till the end.